All right, so that story from Clement Masombo just finishes this segment that we had of the stories that we had prepared for you on business today. And now let's get to the conversation. We are talking about tax amnesty, and joining us is Christine Masharia, who is a tax expert from KRA. Thank you so much for joining us on business today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let's start from the basics, of course, and look at tax amnesty in simple language. What does it exactly mean?
Tax amnesty, let me define amnesty first.
Yes.
Amnesty is a pardon or a relief, a forgiveness, or maybe the common terminology that most people are aware of, it's a waiver. It's a waiver of liabilities. That is what amnesty is. And tax amnesty is now a pardon on tax. That is, in brief, what a tax amnesty is all about.
All right.
Yes.
And now, from understanding what tax amnesty is all about, when you look at the application, of course, of amnesty on taxes, what influences that, and under which circumstance can someone now be introduced into this?
So I think when amnesty was introduced, ideally was to give taxpayers, and when I refer to taxpayers, it's a common mwananchi.
Yes.
A relief from tax burden. Ideally, if you had any liabilities, and when we refer to liabilities, when you file your return, let me take it to the basics so that everybody is on board.
Yes.
When you file a return, at the bottom, if it gives you a positive figure, what we refer as tax due, that is what we call a principal tax. That is what we refer to as principal tax. That is what we refer to as a tax liability. That is where it all starts from. If you file a return that gives you a positive figure at the bottom, that is what we call a principal tax. That is what we call a liability. And when you come to pay that liability late, or you leave it for some time, it accrues penalties, it accrues interest. That is what now we say, that is where amnesty comes in. Somebody like that will benefit from amnesty if they pay that principal tax, that liability that they left outstanding and did not pay at the time that it was supposed to have been paid. Yes.
So when you look at, for example, the application process of amnesty, what goes into it, and what is really required when you come to the application process? Because first of all, is even everyone able to apply for this particular the tax amnesty, or it's just specifically for some individuals?
All right. So there are two categories of people. There are people who would have to apply, and there are people who wouldn't have to apply. There are those who just had penalties and interest and fines. They would not have to apply. They would qualify automatically. But those that have a principal tax, the liability that I just described earlier, those would have to have applied for a payment plan. Now, this is the last month. So if you applied now, ideally you just have this month to pay the principal tax outstanding. But there are those that had made an application, and the application was being done via iTax. iTax is a portal that you file your returns and make payment and generate a payment slip through. You would have to go through your iTax profile. There's a debt and enforcement tab. And there's only one tab, amnesty application. And you would click on it, and you would put the number of installments that you would have wanted. And you submit. It did not need any approval. It was you declaring by yourself, saying, I have a liability and I would want to pay. And that amnesty application was just on the principal debt. Remember, penalty interest, once the principal was paid, you would automatically get the waiver. The amnesty would be granted automatically. So remember, the amnesty was for those who either have principal liability prior to 31st December 2022, had not made payment for that, they would pay. Just pay it off, and you would be granted amnesty.
Okay.
And those who did not have, automatically, and had penalties, would be granted waiver. Yes.
All right. So someone is sitting at home looking at this and wondering, okay, mine is not 2022, but it's 2023. So what does this mean for someone who they are working with 2023 and not 2022? Is it different for them? And if it's different, what do they need to do?
So for people who are having liabilities or who have accrued liabilities from 1st January 2023, coming forward, unfortunately, the Finance Act 2023 deleted the waiver option, and therefore any liability that accrues from 1st January 2023 coming forward is payable in full. Does not qualify for amnesty, does not qualify for waiver.
Okay.
Therefore, it needs to be paid in full. However, if these are you have outstanding liability, you can always apply for a payment plan. However, now that you have to visit your tax service office to be facilitated.
All right.
Yes.
All right, Christine, let us just hold this conversation right here and go for a short break. Don't go too far. We're going to come back with more in order for us to understand about tax amnesty and what you need to do, even as you are now planning to pay that this month. All right, we're going to go for a short break. We'll be back with more.